The rain fell heavily, with droplets pounding against the windshield of the old car, blurring Amara Nguyen's vision. She sighed, turned off the air conditioning and opened the car window, letting the fresh air from the storm cool her down and ease the mounting exhaustion inside her. A long day at Vivid Café, a small yet busy diner in downtown New York, had drained a lot of her energy. The dirty plates, the never-ending coffee cups, and the constant customer demands made Amara feel like time was crawling by. She had worked at the diner for 3 years, but there had been little chance for promotion. She was just another waitress, a faceless shadow among countless others. Despite working hard and maintaining a positive attitude, the managers always looked down on her, especially Jared Banks, the harsh and often shouting manager. Yet Amara didn't give up. She held on to a faint hope that one day there might be an opportunity to change her fate. That afternoon's rain made everything seem even worse. Amara tiredly left the diner and drove home. The streets were crowded and congested, but she wasn't too concerned. She thought about the events of the day. Once again, she had been reprimanded for being a few minutes late. The look of disdain from Jared when he said, "Why can't you be on time like everyone else?" really hurt her. But Amara said nothing. She knew that sometimes life gives you no choice but to stay silent and accept. As she drove through a quiet street, a black luxury car suddenly came into view. The car had broken down, standing still in the rain with its emergency lights flashing. An older man stood by the car, wearing an expensive suit, soaking wet, one hand gripping the car to keep his balance. The image made Amara stop. She could clearly see the fatigue and worry on his face, and despite the rain, he was trying to make a call but couldn't connect. Amara furrowed her brow. She was about to drive past and continue her journey, but the man's gaze made it impossible for her to just leave. She took a deep breath, then turned the car around. These streets were very quiet at night, and people often taught each other not to help strangers, but there was something in the man's eyes that made her unable to walk away. She stopped the car beside him and rolled down the window. "Hello, sir. Can I help you with anything?" she asked through the rain, her voice gentle but serious. The man looked up, staring at her for a moment, before replying in a weak voice, "My car broke down. I called for a tow truck, but no one is coming. I'm lost in this storm." Amara looked at him for a while, then decided to open the car door and said, "Get in. You'll get soaked. I'll take you somewhere to warm up." The man hesitated, but eventually he stepped into the car, closed the door behind him, and sat down beside Amara. "Thank you," he said softly, his eyes full of gratitude. "My name is Ethan Blackwood. I was on my way from a meeting and ran into trouble." Amara just smiled and said nothing more. She wasn't curious about his story. She just wanted to get him to safety and continue with her life. That night, the rain grew heavier, but the air inside the car remained warm. Neither of them said much, only the sound of rain against the glass and the steady hum of the engine. Finally, Amara took Ethan to her small apartment in the northern part of the city. She didn't want him to sit outside in the rain any longer, so she invited him inside and found a towel to dry off. Ethan thanked her, but declined when she offered him to stay the night. "I'll be fine. Thank you so much, Amara. I won't forget your kindness." Amara just smiled, and when Ethan left, she felt a lightness in her heart. She knew she had done the right thing. The next morning, Amara walked into Vivid Café, looking tired. The rain from the night before had kept her from getting much sleep. When she walked into the diner, everything seemed normal, but the atmosphere felt more tense than usual. She quickly went to her locker to get ready for her shift. But just as she entered the kitchen, Jared Banks stopped her. He stood with his hand on his hip, a sneer on his face. "You think time can change, Amara?" he said, his anger obvious. "Late again. Don't think I'll keep letting it slide." Amara swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "I'm sorry, I had an unexpected situation yesterday." Jared didn't let her finish. "Unexpected? Are you going to keep making excuses? You know this place isn't here for you to make excuses. Everyone else works hard, and they don't have time for your nonsense." The whole diner went silent. All eyes were on them. Amara felt the embarrassment rising in her chest.
but she didn't say anything. She simply lowered her head, left the kitchen area, and went to the front counter. People watched her, and the tension still hung in the air. Then nothing could have prepared her for what was coming. Jared suddenly announced he was firing her right then and there in front of the employees and customers. "You're one of the least efficient workers here. Being on time isn't a high request. From now on, you're done here." Amara stood frozen. Jared's words felt like daggers to her heart, but she didn't fight back. She untied her apron, placed it on the counter, and turned to walk out. As she stepped outside, the rain continued to fall, but today it felt much colder. The morning rain seemed endless. The water from the sky unrelentingly pounded the empty streets, creating a cold, sorrowful scene. Amara walked out of Vivid Café, feeling as if the whole world had just crumbled beneath her feet. Jared's firing words echoed in her mind, like daggers in her thoughts. She tried not to cry. She had grown used to facing injustice, but this time the hurt was deeper. She stood in the rain, unsure of where to go. The city felt vast, but she felt as alone as a grain of sand in a desert. She knew one thing: she couldn't go back to working there. She couldn't endure any more of Jared's oppression and contempt. Amara didn't plan to go home right away. She decided to walk around the neighborhood, to find a space to think. It had been a long time since she had the chance to sit down and ask herself if she could change her life. She stopped at the small coffee shop, sitting quietly in a corner. At this moment, she just needed some time to calm down. While sitting there in a daze, something unexpected happened. The black luxury car she had helped the night before appeared, stopping right outside the shop. Amara looked through the window, surprised to see Ethan Blackwood, the man she had helped, step out of the car, dressed in formal attire and walking into the shop. She wasn't sure if he recognized her, but in that moment his gaze met hers. Ethan walked over to her table, stood for a moment as if thinking something deeply. Then he gently spoke. "Amara?" She looked up, stared at him for a moment, and replied, "Hello, sir. I didn't expect to see you here." Ethan smiled, but seemed like he was pondering something serious. "You know, I own several businesses here in New York. One of them is a small diner, much like the one you work at, but I don't want to talk about that right now. I want you to understand that I'm not just some stranger you'll forget after last night." Amara looked at him surprised. She paused for a moment, then asked, "You own Vivid Café?" Ethan shook his head slightly. "No, I don't own it, but I am one of the investors in the diner. In fact, I was the one who helped bring it back to life after some issues with the previous management. And I'll be clear with you, I don't like how a good person like you is treated." Amara was stunned, filled with suspicion. "You know about me being fired?" "Of course," Ethan smiled. "I know everything, and I couldn't let that happen to someone like you." He paused for a moment, as if considering something very important. "The truth is, I want to invite you to work for me, but not as a waitress, Amara. I want you to be a part of this diner in a much more important role." Amara stared at Ethan, unable to believe what she was hearing. I don't understand. I've been fired." "True," Ethan responded, his voice serious, "but that was because I wanted to test you with a bigger role. I don't just want you to work for this diner. I want you to be a part of the change. Honestly, you're the only one I think can help this place grow. We can do a lot of great things, and I want you to do that with me." Amara couldn't respond immediately. Part of her wanted to refuse, to return to the simplicity of her old life, but there was something in Ethan's words that she couldn't ignore. A week later, Amara decided to accept Ethan's offer. She didn't know where it would lead her, but when she started her first day at Vivid Café in her new role as assistant manager, she felt like she was at a significant turning point. But she didn't realize that Ethan Blackwood had a bigger plan for her, a plan involving a dark truth about the diner that she had yet to uncover. And it was her presence that would completely change the diner's fate, as everything began to unfold. The feeling at Vivid Café had changed a lot since Amara started her new job. At first, she was still unsure and couldn't believe she had been given a management position at the diner, but Ethan Blackwood had helped her gain more confidence, giving her the power and freedom to run things. She felt like she was standing at the top, facing new challenges, but also many opportunities ahead. But what no one knew was that behind all this, Ethan Blackwood was not just a regular businessman, but someone quietly watching every move at the diner. This made Amara feel increasingly uneasy. She had never truly known about Ethan's past. He was a mysterious person, often only talking about things that could benefit the diner. However, her questions about Ethan's true motivations were always skillfully avoided by Ethan. With her new role, Amara began to work more closely with Jared Banks, the former manager of the diner, who was now just a regular employee. At first, Jared didn't seem happy about this change. His attitude was somewhat reluctant, even subtly opposed to Amara's presence as the new manager, but she remained calm. She knew he wasn't the type to easily accept defeat, but more importantly, she needed to prove herself by doing a